Halo, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Azza Rosella.
My name is Muhammad Adam.
My name is Fikri Haikal.
In this video, we would like to present our presentations about equivalence above word level.
The first is lexical patterning. Words do not follow each other at random. There are always restrictions on how words are combined to convey meaning. Restrictions which admit no exceptions, especially those applicable to classes of words, are known as rules. In English, a determiner cannot come after a noun, so in English we cannot have "she is a girl beautiful." Other restrictions may accept exceptions, and this usually refer to single words, and so we can talk of patterns or likelihood that a certain word or series of words will appear. This is called lexical patterning, and we can analyze this as follows: collocations, idioms, and fixed expressions.
Next, in order to convey meaning, words are usually combined together and there are restrictions to these combinations. The most common ones, especially those concerning classes of words, take the form of rules. Apart from grammar and syntax, among the elements that determine the arrangement of words in a text are the rules concerning collocation. We have already mentioned as collocational restrictions while talking about presupposed meaning. They can be defined as semantically arbitrary restrictions which do not follow logically from the propositional meaning of a word. Certain words tend to co-occur because of their propositional meaning. Words that belong to the same semantic field are more likely to be found together. Example, steak is more likely to co-occur with chips or salad than with a book. But meaning does not always account for collocation. Example, you grill meat but toast bread. Even if you use the same grill to do it, you wash your hands but shampoo your hair and brush your teeth.
Then, words which may seem like synonyms will often have their own sets of collocation. For example, like in English, we break rules, but we don't break regulation. We talk of squandering money, but not squandering time. We deliver a verdict, but we don't deliver a sentence. We bend rules, but that doesn't mean that rules are unbendable, rules are invisible. Thus, we can understand that collocational patterning is very arbitrary and independent of meaning. This is the case of most languages and not only in English.
Next is collocational range. We can say that every word has a range of items, a set of collocates with which it is compatible. Some words have broad range, like for the example to run, company, business, show, cars, stockings, tights, nose, wild, death, beard, liver, course, water, and color. Some words have limited range, as to shrug, only collocate with shoulders. The verb to bury, being less specific, can be allied to many things: treasure, feelings, head, face, memories, whereas to entomb is much more specific and can be applied to persons or cadavers. Usually the range is indirectly proportional to the specificity of the word. The more general the word, the wider the range. The more specific, the narrower the range.
Collocational markedness. Collocations tend to become part of our linguistic repertoire and we do not stop to think about them when we read them in a text. Herman G. Mankiewicz had been a fine screenwriter, a compulsive gambler, a famous drinker, and a slashing wit, and a man who was almost ferociously accident-prone. I first met Hugh Fraser in Charming, rather hesitant, a heavy smoker and heavy gambler. The difference between compulsive gambler and heavy gambler is that the first is a common collocation in English and the second is not. However, it doesn't strike us as unusual as it is a slight extension of the range. If this is taken further, then we say that it is a marked collocations or highly unusual, which involves the deliberate confusions of collocational range to create new images. Marked collocations are often used in fictions, poetry, humor, and advertisement for this reason. Example, President Clinton found the flames of optimism in an Ireland usually associated with raisins, etc. Could real peace break out after all? Usually war breaks out, not peace.
Next is collocational register. Collocational partners are not always the same in relation to the language system as a whole. Some collocations may seem atypical in everyday language, but collocations such as do, highlight, or vigorous definition are normal collocation in the paragraph sector. In statistics, decide error and tolerance error are also acceptable. The word data in computer language, the translator must understand that the collocations are handle, extract, process, manipulate, and retrieve, but not typically sieve, treat, or arc, or tactile.
Collocational meaning in context. Take a look at the following collocations. Using the word try and try to explain the meaning in each. Try cow, try bread, try wine, try sound, try voice, try country, try book, try humor, try run. You will see that depending on the collocation, the word try takes on another meaning. When translations are criticized for being inaccurate, often it be, often it is because the translator has been unable to recognize a collocational pattern with a unique meaning which exceeds the sum of the meanings of the single elements.
Dry cow means a cow that produces no milk. Dry sound, a sound which is not sharp nor hollow. Dry book, a book which is not funny or difficult to read. Dry bread, stale or old bread. Dry voice, a cold, emotionless voice. Dry humor, sarcastic or scathing. Dry wine, as is not sweet. Dry country, a country in which the sale of alcohol is prohibited. Dry run, uneven or a test which give no results.
Collocation pitfall. So, it is important to understand the collocational meaning of the word in the context. The first is to start a family is not to have children, but to have the first children. The second is to run a car is not to drive a car fast but to manage or pay for a car. Third is he was a man of modest means does not mean she and catering but with very little money or research. Thus do not subtract the rational meaning of the individual meaning but more the collocational meaning.
Idioms and fixed expressions. Idioms and fixed expressions are frozen, stereotype patterns of language which allow no variation in form and often carry meanings which cannot be deduced from their individual components. Like for the example, beat by the bush. Although some idioms are more flexible than others, usually a speaker or writer cannot do any of the following with an idiom, unless he or she is making a joke. The point, change the order of the words beat the bush about, delete a word beat about, add a word beat about the usual bush, replace a word beat about the tree, and change its grammatical structure beat about bushes.
The main problems that idiomatic and fixed expression create in translation are related to two areas: the ability to recognize and interpret an idiom correctly and the difficulties involved in rendering the various aspects of meaning that it conveys. As far as idioms are concerned, the first difficulty for a translator is to recognize them. Some idioms are more recognizable than others because they violate third condition or do not follow grammatical rules.
There are two cases in which idioms can be misinterpreted. First is when they offer a reasonable literary interpretation, take some for a ride. Two, when an idiom in the short language has a counterpart in the target language which look very similar but has a different meaning. To have cold feet.
The difficulties involved in translating idioms can be summarized as follows. The first, an idiom or fixed expression might have no equivalent in the target language. The second, an idiom or fixed expression might have a similar counterpart in the target language, but its context of use might be different. They may have different connotations or not be pragmatically transferable.
An idiom may be used in the source text both in its literal and idiomatic senses at the same time, and this play on idiom may not be successfully reproduced in the target text. The convention regarding idioms, the context in which they can be used, and their frequency of use may be different in the source language and the target language.
Strategies for translating idioms. Baker proposes the following strategies for translating idioms. The first, using an idiom of similar meaning and form. Force the hand or forcer la mano. The second, using an idiom of similar meaning but dissimilar form. Shut the stable door when the horse has pottled. Chiudere la stalla quando abbuio sono scappati. Paraphrasing when there is no match or using idiomatic language seems inappropriate in the target text. The police decided to call the dogs of La Polizia the size disimetre di dargli la sasia. Omission if the idiom has no close match and paraphrase is either difficult or results in clumsy style. She was as poor as a crouched mouse. Era povissima.
Naturals versus accurate naturalis in translation often involves a balance between accurate and naturalis. Here are some texts in which naturalis has been preferred over accurate. Short text, new tradition offer us fascinating series of traditional patterns in miniature using rich jewel-like color that go against dark background. Jewel-like in miniature short text, this young panda in Beijing Zoo are great crowd puller. Karena mengisar apa nyamping? Berarti nyamping. Setiap ini. Ora, bener.
Udah Pak.
Udah. Short text, new tradition offer a fascinating source of traditional pattern in miniature using rich yellow-like colors that glow against dark background. The new tradition collection presents a number of fascinating design in a reduced size in dazzling color like the color of game. The glowing of which enhanced by the dark background. Gel-like versus dazzling color like the color of gums. In miniature versus in a reduced size. Short text. This young panda in Beijing Zoo are great crown puller. This and then back translation from Chinese is this your This young panda in the Beijing Zoo attract a lot of spectators. Trumpular faces attract a lot of spectators.
Naturalness versus accuracy, loss of accuracy. Now we have the loss of accuracy by adopting similar collocation but with another meaning in the target language. So Stack's Tiny Rowlands in is a crisper writer than Peter Wright. By translation from Arabic, Tiny Rowland has a sharper pen than Peter Wright. Crisper writer, talented and direct, versus sharpened pen, fierce critic. So text, the money came from the Sultan of Brunei, a naive individual, easily romanced and seduced by the only charm of Mohammed Fayed. Back translation from Chinese, the money came from the Sultan of Brunei and he is a naive person who believes imaginary, fake stories and the false charm of Mohammed Fayed. Oily charm or sickening unpleasant versus false charm seems nice at the first meeting.
Language is not made up of a large number of words which can be used together in free variations. Words have certain tolerance of compatibility, like individual words, collocational patterns carry meaning and can be culture specific. This, in addition to their largely arbitrary nature, give rise to numerous pitfalls and problems in translations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention. Bye bye.